So we come now very near the end of our classes for this beautiful, beautiful spiritual renewal week. I know we all feel deeply uplifted and thankful to God for the experience of this. The question is, as Dave started out asking, how do we hold on to it? How do we keep it? Well, one of the answers to that is that Lahiri Mahashaya said the answer to every problem is Kriya Yoga. Now, some of you don't have Kriya Yoga, so are you, as Swami said, poor slobs who are stuck because you don't have it? No. He was referring to something deeper. The Kriya Yoga is the ultimate, it's a technique that leads to the ultimate self-offering of the ego to God. You know the claw marks down the back of the couch that Dave was referring to in that cartoon? The back of the couch that we're clawing onto are our own tendencies. It isn't something outside of ourselves. It's holding on to our own attachments. If we don't have attachments, there aren't any claw marks on it. You know, Davy and I drove down twice a week. A blessed event happens at Ananda. It's garbage day. That's when you can throw out your trash. We can only do it twice a week, which is very nice because it makes us appreciate the act of getting rid of stuff. And so we drove down with our garbage today. Now, if we had parked and gone into the mailroom before we threw that out and we came out to discover somebody had stolen our trash, we wouldn't feel very upset about that. So it's not your possessions, it's your attachment to your possessions that we're working on. So the claw marks are the signs of your attachment to whatever tendencies you have. And Kriya Yoga is the solution to everything because it helps us retract our claws and we're no longer attached. It's a little bit like I call up and I say, Lahiri, I've got a problem. And he says, well, what's the problem? And I'll say whatever is facing me. And he'll say, what's the solution? And if I'm awake a little bit, I'll say, oh yeah, Kriya Yoga. Because it is the solution to everything. It helps us overcome the tendency to be attached to the things of this world. So now I'll talk about the acorn. As we were sitting there, a couple of acorns fell down from the tree above us. For the sake of the analogy, let's imagine that tree to be tendencies that keep us locked into the world. And that tree behind us, I don't know, let's assume that it's 100 years old. It's a nice, easy figure. One day, it was an acorn like this. And the reason that it's a tree is that when it was an acorn, it fell on fertile soil. And it had an environment that produced the kind of conditions that allowed it to grow. And so it grew into a tree. This is like our karma, seeds of karma. You know, in fire ceremony, we throw handfuls of rice into the fire to burn them up. If we don't throw them into the fire, they land in fertile soil. The fire is the fire of Kriya Yoga within. At the beginning of each initiation, we have a fire ceremony, which is symbolic of that self-offering of our tendencies. So if you have fertile soil, the world is going to produce acorns, and it's going to drop those acorns. That's the nature of life. Life wants to reproduce itself. Karma wants to reproduce itself. If you want to create more and more karma, then make sure your soil is fertile. Have lots of attachments. Have lots of desires. have lots of interactions. Keep some bad company. They'll help you. They'll help plow the ground for you a little bit. And if you don't want those to germinate, get a nice flat stage with some Kriya charyas on it and let the acorns drop there. And they aren't going to germinate, and they aren't going to cause you any more problems. So part of the solution is one of continual self-offering. I'll tell a story about the very first Kriya initiation I attended. It was in Swami Kriyananda's living room in San Francisco, and there were about 8 or 9 of us who attended the initiation. He held it on a Friday night at the end of December, toward the end of December, because the next day we were going to have the 8-hour meditation, the first one I ever attended. And he wanted to have those who were ready have Kriya to practice for that 8-hour meditation. And so naturally, especially those who just took Kriya for the first time last night, you know that there's a little bit of anxiety and a lot of energy involved in that first Kriya initiation. And so I had gone out and gone to a florist shop to get some flowers. And striking my eye were these beautiful yellow flowers, big ones. In retrospect, I'm not much of a botanist, so I don't know. I think they were carnations, but they were big, not little ones, big ones, and full of yellow petals, intense color to it. And I got a whole bouquet of these to take. Now, flowers are symbolic of the offering of devotion to the line of the gurus. And so I was there, 7 of us in the room, and I had my flowers, and I set them down beside my chair. And there was a man who I have a lot of debt to because he helped introduce me to Swami Kriyananda. It was he who gave us, my brother-in-law and me, the address of Swami's apartment in San Francisco, and that's how I met him. So this man, Bimal, came in late. Bimal did not relate well to the physical plane. So he came in late. His hair was disheveled, as it always was whenever I saw him. And he sat down in the empty chair beside me. And as the initiation proceeded, it came time for each person to go up and make their offering at the altar. Well, Bimal didn't bring any flowers. And so he looked around, saw mine, grabbed mine, took them up, and put them on the altar. So when I came up, I had no symbol of devotion to offer to God. Well, I'll tell you, it put me through a mind trip. Like Jaya said, that question, he worried about it for weeks. Well, I worried about it hour after hour for days because it was, it's funny now. But at the time, it was a very serious thing for me. Did I have no devotion? Or did God not want what I had to offer? And it was a very serious thing for me. About 2 weeks later, Swami called and he said, "Was it you who brought those beautiful yellow flowers?" I said, "Yes." He said, "They're still alive." And I shouldn't tell this story publicly. They're still alive on the altar. Said, "I've never seen flowers last that long." And I realized that not only is it important to offer our devotion to God, but it's important to offer it in a completely selfless manner. And it's important also to offer it to our friends and others who are sharing the path with us. Because God is not only on the altar. God is not separate from us. God resides more powerfully in the person sitting next to you right now than he does in the pictures up on the altar. That which you give to those around you, you give to God. And that which you give to yourself, you give to God. And as you do that selflessly and with a sense of devotion and freedom, what happens as a result of that is that God begins to take away your burdens. Your burdens do not exist outside of yourself. All of our burdens are only our own attachments, our own sense of holding on to a bundle of self-definitions that is not our true self. And as we give things to others, as we give things to God, that sense of attachment begins to break down until it does not exist anymore. The last 2 presents that I've seen Swami give to people have been birthday presents. And one was a wedding present and one was a birthday present. And one was this beautiful statue of St. Francis that was just very delicately carved and has been in Swamiji's apartment for many years. And for Hashi and Peter's wedding about a month ago, he gave this as a present to them. And as he gave it, he said, I wanted you to have this. This is my favorite statue. And I hope that you enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed it. Think of that for a moment. I offer this to you because this is my favorite thing, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed it. As we begin to offer to the world those things that seem precious to us, we're released from any sense of attachment and any sense of being bound by whatever the tendencies and desires that we have. This, above all, is the power that Kriya Yoga brings. Because in Kriya Yoga, the essence of it is the technique helps us to withdraw our life force and offer that to God. And as we do that with devotion, as we do it with this outwardly the symbol of offering the flowers on the altar, as we offer with devotion and the practice of the technique, and as we do that day after day after day, we get freer and freer and freer inside until finally I think I'll answer 2 questions. As Davy said, you cannot get there from here. As long as there is a here and a there in your mind, you can't get there because you've placed God there somewhere outside of yourself. When you get to the point where there's only here, only God within you, then you don't need to question the cranky old farmer who's going to give you the wrong answer. You don't need to question life. You don't need to search. But God, no, and this is repeated through dozens of stories that are told in scriptures all over the world where someone is searching and searching and searching and they find it in their own backyard. God is within you right now, right here. And to project Him as out there in the future is to do a disservice to Him and to yourself. Kriya Yoga begins to take away the delusion, because it's such an inward practice, takes away the delusion that God is outside and separate from ourselves. And finally, what Kriya Yoga does, as Jaya said, the one power that we have is the power to choose to be happy or not to choose to be unhappy. The one real power that we have that Kriya helps us actuate is the choice to recognize the fact that God is within us right now at this moment. God is within the person sitting next to you right now at this moment. God is in everything in life. God is everything in life. And God does everything in life. And when we come to that recognition, then, as Jaya put it, the whole problem disappears and life becomes easy. Try as Master's second most advanced disciple, a wonderful soul, Oliver Black, who started a work in Michigan. He said that he kept a bubble of joy around him all the time. One day his temple and the 2 or 3 other buildings burned down. A friend of ours told us this story. And he went to his house, and it seemed to be a little sad. He came back at dinner that night, and he was just as joyful and cheerful as if nothing at all had happened. And he said, for a moment that experience, for a few hours that experience got inside my bubble of joy. But then I created it again, and nothing can get inside. Walk through life after the daily practice of self-offering to God. Walk through life in your own God-created bubble of joy, and everything will seem beautiful and easy to you.